Hey, how you doing, Econ students? This is Jacob Clifford. Welcome to the second practice exam on the Ultimate Review Packet. Now, if you haven't already got it, go get the Ultimate Review Packet. It has a bunch of practice questions. It has a bunch of guided notes to fill out. It gives you access to a bunch of summary videos. It gives you access to a bunch of practice multiple choice questions in video format on YouTube. And it's going to give you these practice tests. That's the best way to learn by far. You sit down, you do the practice questions, you see if you're getting it. Keep in mind, if you're looking for an individual question, if you just want to understand question 55, because I'm going to go over all the questions and all the answers, you can click on the description below and you can click on there. It'll send you a fast forward in this video so you don't have to kind of keep looking around. But let's start it up, man. Let's do some microeconomics. Okay, let's start off with question number one. The right answer here is E. $7. Now, if you said, oh no, it's just the $40 of money he could have earned by working, keep in mind opportunity cost doesn't just look at the money you could have earned, it also includes the money you did spend on something else, right? He spent the $30 on the tickets. So he spent $30 in the tickets, that's money he could have spent doing something else, and he could have earned another $40 by working, and he didn't earn that either. So the total opportunity cost of his decision is 70, the answer is E. Okay, question number two is a comparative advantage question, and in this case, it's an input question. Remember, there's output and input questions. Output look at producing stuff, and you want higher numbers, right? If one country can produce 20 cars, another country can produce 300 cars, $300 cars is more, and that means that it's an output question. In this case, we're talking about minutes. So we're talking about the resources, or the input, the time in this case. So it's better to take only 30 minutes to pull weeds than it does to take 60 minutes to pull weeds. So the point is, what should they actually do here? And the answer for question number two is B. Sydney should mow the lawns and Noah should pull weeds. Now, to actually break that down for you, we have to do some of the calculations. You have to calculate the per unit opportunity cost of mowing lawns. So for Noah, each minute he spends mowing lawns, he could have done 2 weeds in that same period of time, right? If he spent 60 minutes mowing lawns, he could have pulled weeds twice. And every single time he pulls weeds, he could have done half of mowing lawns, right? So you set up per unit opportunity cost. Now, if that helps you, that's great. Go back and watch my video where I talk about output input questions. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use the quick and dirty. The what? If you saw the video, you know what I'm talking about, the quick and dirty. The quick and dirty is when you realize that when it comes to comparative advantage, either Noah is mowing lawns and Sydney is doing weeds, or the other way, Sydney is doing lawns and Noah is pulling weeds. So you only have 2 possible scenarios here, because when it comes to comparative advantage, you can't have them have a comparative advantage in both, right? They just don't write questions like that. It doesn't work that way for these kind of questions. So the question is, who should do what? And who has a comparative advantage in what? Well, the trick, remember, for the quick and dirty, you multiply 60 times 60. If Noah mows the lawns and Sydney does the weeds, that's 360 minutes. If I multiply 90 times 30, where Sydney is mowing lawns and Noah is pulling the weeds, 90 times 60 is 270 minutes. 270 minutes is lower in this case, and since you want less time to get something done, the right answer is Sydney mows the lawn and Noah pulls the weeds. Again, if you're totally confused right now, you're like, what are you even talking about? There's a video where I explain the quick and dirty. It's a Unit 1 summary. It's available for everyone out there. But that was the right answer in this one. The answer was B, no doubt about it. Question number 3 is your classic supply and demand question. And this one's a double shifter. So there's actually a lot going on here. You got to keep track of it. Let's use a graph. That's right, here comes the graph. We've got traditional sauce, demand, supply. First part, it says, if the price of tomatoes decreases and you need those tomatoes to produce traditional sauce, that means supply would increase. So supply is going to go up for the traditional sauce, but we're not done yet, because it also says that there's an increase in the price of Alfredo sauce. So increase in the price of Alfredo sauce, which is a substitute, and it tells you that, would increase the demand, which is the ugliest demand right here. The demand would go up. So we started here, we ended here. No doubt about it. It doesn't matter how you draw this. The quantity is going to go up. So the right answer is A, the equilibrium quantity of traditional sauce will increase. This is actually a double shifter. Price, although it looks the same, is actually indeterminate. Remember the double shift rule, when 2 curves shift at the same time, either price or quantity is going to be indeterminate. The way you can figure it out is just draw the graph. That's why I drew the graph. A is the right answer for number 3. Question 4 is a great question about demand and the idea of elasticity. First, it says price has gone up, right? So prices went up. And the fact that it was $3.25, the numbers don't matter. It's just the idea. Price went up. And it also says that demand is inelastic. Now, when the price goes up, what happens to the quantity demanded? Not the total revenue, the quantity demanded. The price goes up, people buy less. And so the first thing is the amount purchase will decrease. The only ones that make sense are C, D, and E. The quantity is going to fall. Again, why? The law of demand. When the price goes up, people buy less of it. That's the law of demand. Now, total revenue depends on the elasticity. In this case, the demand is inelastic. So when the price goes up, the quantity falls a little bit, so the total revenue actually goes up. So the right answer here is the price is, the quantity produced is going to decrease and the revenue is going to go up. Question number 4, the answer is D. Question number 5 also talks about elasticity, but it goes more in detail into a different concept called cross-price elasticity. Remember, there's basically 4 different types of elasticity. There's elasticity of demand, elasticity of supply, cross-price elasticity, and income elasticity of demand. The one you need to understand for this one is cross-price elasticity. It tells you if 2 products are substitutes or complements. So it had nothing to do with normal and inferior, so D and E, that's out. And I'm not talking about the price elasticity demand, and A, that's also out. So if you put A, oh, one's unelastic, yeah, that's not cross-price elasticity. That's elasticity of demand, a different concept. So the right answer is either complement or substitute. Well, since it's a positive number, this is positive 1, the right answer is a substitute. C is the right answer. Good X and Y are substitutes because when the price for one goes up, the quantity for the other one will go up, right? They're positively correlated. That's the idea of substitutes. Price goes up, people are going to be like, I'm not going to buy that, I want to go buy the other one. There it is. Or the other way around, if it's a the positive number, because 2 negatives make a positive, that also works. The point is, when it comes to cross-price elasticity, positive numbers are substitutes, negative numbers are complements. Okay, question number 6 talks about the law of diminishing marginal utility. It explains the shape of the demand curve, the law of demand. The answer is A. Now, if you thought, does it have anything to do with the production possibilities curve? Not really. No, the law of demand or the law of diminishing marginal utility doesn't tell us about what the production possibilities curve is shaped, and it doesn't talk to us about horizontal demand for perfectly competitive firms either. So it doesn't talk about the law of supply. It's talking about consumers and the satisfaction they get from consuming things. That's clearly the idea of the law of demand. Question number 7, we're talking about cost curves. Specifically, we're talking about a lump sum tax and its effect on different cost curves. So there's some details here. First, it's a lump sum tax. A lump sum tax is a one-time tax. It doesn't affect the marginal cost. It only affects the average total cost and the average fixed cost. And the reason why it's a one-time effect on your fixed cost, we're going to charge you $100 one-time fee. A per unit tax is every single time you produce more, we're going to charge you more. So the point is, it's not A, marginal cost will increase. No, marginal cost stays the same. Quantities is going to stay the same, so B and C are out. The average total cost will increase. Bam, there's your answer. D is the right answer. The average total cost would increase for firms because now there's a lump sum tax on that market. And then E, average variable costs will increase. No, the average variable does not change when there's a change in fixed costs. Okay, for question number 8, you got to keep in mind the definition of the long run. Now you might be thinking, oh, the long run when firms enter and leave in perfect competition. No, we're talking about long run production. Remember, the short run production talks about the law of diminishing marginal returns and the marginal cost curve. As you produce more, the additional output will eventually fall, and so the marginal cost eventually goes up. The long run cost curves, though, talk about the idea of economies of scale, constant returns and diseconomies of scale, and this idea that all resources are variable in the long run. So there's no fixed resources. And that gives you the right answer. The right answer here is at least one factor of production is fixed. So which of the following is true in the short run? Well, something is fixed. In the short run, we have one table, one oven, one machine, one tractor, at least one, or maybe 2, but there's only a set of number. So there's 5 of them, and we only have 5 of them. But in the long run, you could have 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. And that's the idea, getting into economies of scale and the long run average total cost curve. So one more time, in the long run, all resources are variable. In the short run, at least one resource is fixed. For question number 9, you got to keep in mind that all market structures have some same characteristics. The cost curves, they all look the same. The shutdown rule still applies, and most importantly, the answer is E, the marginal revenue equals marginal cost. The profit maximizing rule also applies. So it doesn't matter if it's a monopoly, perfect competition, monopoly competition, they're all producing and maximizing profit where MR equals MC. The right answer, number 9, is E. For question number 10, you have to be able to compare monopoly to perfect competition. In this case, compared to a monopoly, what can you say about perfect competition's price and quantity? Well, the price would be lower and the quantity would be more. They wouldn't have deadweight loss. So the right answer for number 10 is A. Perfect competition charges a lower price and produces higher output than a monopoly would. Remember, a monopoly holds back production to maximize profit because they can. They're the only firm in the industry. All right, in question number 11, we finally have a graph. We've got demand, marginal revenue, marginal cost, ATC. That is a monopolist. And it says if they're maximizing profit, calculate the area of consumer surplus. So number one, you got to figure out where is maximizing profit. And the answer is producing 50 units. That's where MR equals MC. They charge a price up to demand, which is 30. Remember that price up to demand thing is 30. Consumer surplus is that triangle. Now, if you see it and you can shade it in, that's awesome. In this question, you have to actually calculate it. It's area of a triangle, 1/2 base times height. So 50 minus 30 is 20, and the quantity is 50, right? And then you got to cut that in half. So 50 minus 30 is 20. 20 times 50 is 1,000. 1,000 cut in half is 500. There's your right answer. Number 11 is D. In question number 12, we're still at the graph. Now it asks a new question. It's not talking about profit maximizing. It's talking about maximizing total revenue. Now, total revenue is maximized where MR hits 0. Where the marginal revenue hits 0, total revenue is at its peak. And so the price and quantity, well, the quantity would be 80 and the price would be up there at 20. So the right answer is C. Number 12 is C. In question 13, we're moving on to unit 5, talking about the resource market, and this time talking about perfectly competitive firms. What does that graph look like? So if I say, what does a perfectly competitive firm look like in the resource market? You'd say, well, it's got a horizontal marginal resource cost, and it's got a downward sloping marginal revenue product. So the right answer here is E. Firm's demand curve for labor is downward sloping, and then the firm supply curve is horizontal because they're wage takers. Remember, the wage is taken by the market, so the marginal resource cost, which equals the supply, is horizontal, and the demand is downward sloping. Each worker generates less additional revenue, and so the willingness to hire those workers falls because each worker generates less revenue for your company, right? So that's what the graph looks like. E. Now, question 14 is a pretty easy one. It's the profit maximizing rule for hiring workers, right? You hire workers where the MRP hits the MRC. Now, the part that's tricky here, it talks about the marginal factor cost. And if your teacher hasn't talked about that, you're like, what's that? I haven't seen that before. Marginal resource cost is the same as the marginal factor cost. And the reason why factors, resources, inputs, these are all the name of the things used to produce other things. So the factor market is the resource market, is the input market, it's all the same thing. So the question says, firm's gonna hire until the marginal factor, the marginal resource cost equals the marginal revenue product. So the right answer is B, right? You always hire where the MRP hits the MRC. Question 15 is a good question. It's talking about this idea of a public good. Keep in mind there are two parts of a public good that make it a true public good. Non-exclusion, shared consumption. Non-exclusion means you cannot prevent other people, or you can't, I'm gonna start that over again. All right. Do it again. Question 15 is a good question. It talks about a pure public good, which remember has two characteristics, non-exclusion and shared consumption. Non-exclusion means there's no way to exclude people from enjoying the benefits. They're gonna enjoy it no matter what. You can't find a way to set some sort of price to keep people from enjoying the product. Shared consumption, I can use it, you can use it, we can all use it. The right answer in 15 is E. The private sector does not provide public goods because it cannot exclude non-payers from enjoying the benefits. If there's going to be free riders no matter what, if people are going to get national defense regardless of what I do, no matter what, I can't get them to pay for it, then you can't expect the private sector to provide it. Anything that's free for anyone to use, why should people pay in the first place? So the right answer here is E. It's interesting if you put the answer D, the private sector cannot be trusted with providing national defense. Maybe, I don't know if that's necessarily true. It might be true, but for economics purposes, E is the better answer. C, the private sector cannot pay for all the cost of national defense. Sure it could. Right? The private sector can you can buy a whole lot of things and spend a whole lot of things, but the reason why they won't. They could. Remember, you could fund a national defense. The reason why they won't is because they can't get their money back. Like a company can't get that money back if everyone can use it for free because of non-exclusion, or because you can't exclude people from enjoying the benefit. Okay, for question 16, we're going back to unit 1. Which of the following will cause an outward shift? What causes the production cost curve to shift outward? The answer is investing in new technology, B. So if you have new technology, remember there's 3 shifters of the production cost curve: new resources and better resources, new technology and more productivity. We can produce things we couldn't produce before. And of course, trade can get you to consume beyond that curve. In this case, investing in developing new technology, that would get us to produce more stuff. So B is the right answer. It increased the price of products for which it has a comparative advantage, no. Producing more of its most expensive products, no. I mean, why? Why would that get you to produce more in the long run? Reducing foreign trade, no. reducing its spending for developing human capital? No. In fact, increasing human capital could lead to more growth. So E is going the complete wrong direction, and the other ones don't really make sense. That means that B must be the right answer. Now again, in 17, we're sticking with Unit 1, talking about the production possibilities curve. There's two curves you need to remember in their shape. A bowed out curve, right, which looks like this, a bowed out curve like that, and then a straight line curve, which is just a straight line. A bowed out curve has increasing opportunity costs, where the resources to produce the two products are completely different. A straight line production possibilities curve, resources are very similar. Right? And so in this case, the concave production possibilities curve, concave is this, concave to the origin, or bowed out, shows this idea of increasing opportunity cost. So C is the right answer. If this question said something like, the resources are easily adaptable and they have constant opportunity costs, then the right answer would be D, a straight line production possibilities curve. But it's not talking about increasing opportunity costs, bowed out curve. Okay, in question 18, you're going to be asked this question a lot. You're going to see this concept. You got to know the difference between a change in demand or a change in supply and a change in quantity demanded and quantity supplied. In this case, if the price of baseball caps goes up, well, the demand and the supply do not change. Demand doesn't go up or down. Supply does not go up or down. In this case, when the price goes up, the quantity supplied goes up. So the right answer is C, increase in the price of baseball caps. The quantity supplied for baseball caps would increase. Right? Again, the reason why is there's this difference between a shifter and a slider. Shifters, things other than price that cause the curve to shift. So new technology in production of hats would shift the supply. But a change in the price doesn't shift the curve, it just moves along the curve. And so that's why the right answer is C. Okay, we're looking at question 19. If you remember going back to question 5, we talked about cross-price elasticity. We had kind of a basic question that kind of introduced it. Now we're into a more advanced question that asks you to actually calculate it and identify it. So in this situation, it says the price of cinnamon increased by 10%, and the quantity demanded for a different spice decreased by 5%. Now, first thing you need to know, if the price increased for cinnamon and the quantity decreased for spice X, that means this must pop out a negative number. So we got only B, D, and E as the potential right answers here. All right, next thing, you should know that a negative number, like we said before, is a complement. Negative numbers are complements. So right now we're looking only at B and D as the right answers because those are the only ones that talk about complements that are negative numbers. So now we're down to 50% on a guess on this one. But let's think about it. The elasticity, the cross-price elasticity coefficient, demand coefficient, is a percent change in quantity divided by a percent change in price. So you get the quantity on top. The quantity, it says, is a 5% decrease, and the change in price, which is below it, is 10. 5 over 10 gives you a half. So the right answer is negative 0.5. So the right answer here, 19, is D. Question number 20 is a basic definition question. You gotta know what allocative efficiency is, but really you're gonna see it in a lot of other places. You're gonna see it with monopolies, monopoly competition, externalities. The idea of allocative efficiency is important because it also is related to deadweight loss. So you gotta know this concept. The right answer is A, allocative efficiency occurs when you're producing the quantity where the price equals the marginal cost. Now here's why, here's the logic of it. If the price is $100 and the marginal cost is only $2, society says, we want it. We want to pay $100 and the cost to produce that unit is only $2. Society says, please make more. So the firm should be producing more, right? And a monopoly doesn't produce more because they can make profit and hold back production. But a perfect competitive firm should be making more because they can make more profit off it and society is saying make more. When that marginal cost, let's say, is 10 and the price is 10, you've made the right amount. Society says, hey, that's what we want. If you produce a unit where society is only willing to pay $5 and the marginal cost is 20, then you've produced too much. Right? Society is saying, listen, we only value at $5 and it costs $20 to produce it, you're producing too much. So when the marginal cost hits the price, that's producing the amount society actually wants. That's called allocative efficient. That's the idea of A. 20 is A. Okay, for 21, this Mr. Box eating pizza and tacos, the first thing to understand is that when they're free, when he has no cost other than opportunity cost, nothing's free, I get that. But when he'd rather choose a taco, so you got a choice which one you want to choose, he'd rather eat a taco. But then it says if he is paying and he decides to eat a pizza, then what must be true? Well, the answer must be B. The price of a taco is greater than the price of pizza. Right? If he would have picked, no doubt about it, a taco every single time, then if he's picking a pizza, that must mean that taco prices must be greater than the pizza prices, right? Again, you can't do any calculations. So it says, later down the line, margin utility of a taco equals 0, and that doesn't work. What does work, the only one that makes sense is B. 21 is B. Okay, here comes 22. It is time for a cost curve question. There's no curves here, but it's just, do you understand total cost and variable cost? It starts off, well, first of all, the answer is D. The answer is D, 4,000. Here's how you get it. You've got the total cost, which is 100,000. The fixed cost is 60,000, so the difference in between them is 40,000, which is your variable cost. But the question's not asking for your variable cost, it's asking for your average variable cost. So you can take the 40,000, divide it by 10, that gave you $4,000 average variable cost. So the answer is D. Now, be careful when you see tests. The word average is key. If you saw total cost and average total cost, we're talking about completely different concepts here. So in this one, if you came up with 40,000, you put B, you were just going too fast. You read that what's the variable cost? Well, the total variable cost is B, 40,000. But the average variable cost, you gotta divide by that 10 units to end up getting 4,000. The answer is D. Okay, question 23 is talking about the side-by-side graph for a market and for a firm in perfect competition. Remember, market, you got supply and demand, regular supply and demand for the market, and for the individual firm, you got a horizontal demand curve. So this question says, what happens in the short and the long run when people want more soybeans? Well, demand goes up, that makes sense, and the price is gonna go up. When the demand shifts to the right, price is gonna go up, people want more soybeans, so the price is gonna increase, no doubt about it. But what's gonna happen to the price in the long run? Well, in the long run, other firms are gonna enter and supply is gonna increase and it's gonna go right back to where it was before. So the right answer is B. Price will increase in the short run, but price will remain constant in the long run. 23 is B. Okay, question 24, you gotta know that graph. That is the long run average total cost curve. Just by looking at it, you can spot it. What's happening at any quantity less than Q1? Well, economies of scale. The right answer here is B. Economies of scale is the idea that getting bigger is cheaper. As you produce more, your long run average total cost is gonna fall. And that's what's happening all the way up to Q1. Between Q1 and Q2 is constant returns to scale. So getting bigger has no cost benefit. Costs stay exactly the same, your average cost. And beyond Q2, your long run average total cost starts going back up, called diseconomies of scale. Again, there's 3 ranges, and this has to do with the long run. All resources are variable, and you've got economies, constant, and diseconomies of scale. Okay, question 25 is a great question, especially if you have the graph in front of you. So whenever you get a test, sit down and look through to see what graphs are already there. If you refer to the monopoly graph that's in a test, you'll get the right answer. Profit maximizing quantity for a monopolist, unregulated, is always in the elastic range. The answer is E. The reason why is the elastic range is when the marginal revenue is positive. And a monopolist produces where the MR hits the MC, but if the MR is negative in the inelastic range, then they're not gonna produce over there. In fact, it makes sense. If you think about it, the inelastic range is the idea that you could raise the price and increase your revenue. Why would a monopolist be producing over there if they can just keep increasing their price further, right? So the point is they're gonna produce in the elastic range. The right answer is E. Question 26, again, it'd be great to have the graph for a monopolistically competitive firm in long run equilibrium. A firm is not productively efficient because the price is above minimum ATC. The right answer is C. 26 is C. Remember, there's 2 types of efficiency, allocative and productive. Allocative efficiency, where price hits the marginal cost. Productive efficiency is where the price hits the minimum ATC. They're producing the lowest possible cost. So in this case, they're not productively efficient because their costs are too high and they have some excess capacity. So there it is. That's right answer. 26 is C. Question 27, you're actually talking about the same concept over again of socially optimal. For perfect competition, because there's low barriers to entry, like monopolist competition, there's no profit in the long run. So it's referring to monopolist competition and perfect competition in the long run. Remember the graph, there's no profit in the long run. So total revenue equals total cost. The price does equal the average total cost. Marginal cost does equal the marginal revenue because they're maximizing profit. And the price does equal the average revenue. So A through D are all correct. So E is the right answer because it's not correct. The price does not equal marginal cost. Monopolist competition does not produce where the price equals the marginal cost. Marginal cost is lower than the price, and they're causing deadweight loss. Think of it that way. If you're not producing where the price hits the marginal cost, you're having deadweight loss. Monopoly competition causes deadweight loss. Perfect competition is the only market structure that in the long run has no is allocatively efficient and productively efficient and has no deadweight loss. So again, the right answer in 27 is E. Now in 28, I know what you're thinking, man. This is a lot of words, a lot of numbers, throwing a lot of things at you. Just understand the concept. When a firm is hiring, they can have different resources. They can hire workers or capital, land, or they can all these different resources they can get. And if they're trying to figure out how to maximize profit, what they got to do is hire the resources that give them the most output per dollar spent. So if I get more output per dollar spent from buying this capital than I do from that labor, I should continue to keep buying more and more of that capital. And that's what they're kind of setting up here. In fact, I set it up on the board. The capital, they said the marginal product of the capital is 50 and the price of the capital is 50, and the marginal product of the labor is 150 and the price of that labor is 100. Now, looking at this maybe organizes it better. Understand that you're getting, or this firm is getting more output per dollar spent from the labor than they are from the capital. In other words, this is more valuable to them because they're getting more output for each dollar they spend. What should they do? Well, they should hire more of that labor. If you're getting more output per dollar spent from here, hire more of these. So the right answer here is the firm should hire more labor and less capital. The answer is C. Okay, for question 29, it talks about increasing minimum wage. Keep in mind, remember the marginal factor cost is the same as the marginal resource cost, same thing. So what's the marginal factor cost going to do? What's the additional cost of hiring another worker going to do when there's a minimum wage? Well, it's going to go up. And then the marginal revenue product of the last worker will also go up. The answer is D. And the reason why is when the wage goes up, now workers that were bringing in, let's say the wage was 10, and the wage, because the minimum wage goes up to 30. Right? Now, the workers who I was hiring for, they brought in $12 to a company and I hired them at a wage of 10. I can't hire them anymore. If they only brought in $12, but now the wage, because the minimum wage is now higher, I got to get rid of you. So the marginal revenue product is going to go up for that last worker, and the wage and the marginal resource costs are also going to go up. Again, D's the right answer. Marginal factor cost is the same as the marginal resource cost, and those are going to increase. The marginal revenue product will also increase of that last worker. D is the right answer. Question number 30, it's again definition question here. The free public radio is a true public good. A true public good has two characteristics: non-exclusion and shared consumption. Now, shared consumption is also sometimes called non-rivalry. That's right, the answer is B. It has non-rival and non-excludable. In other words, I can use it, you can use it, we can all use it. That's the idea of shared consumption or non-rivalry. And you cannot exclude people from enjoying the benefits. That's non-exclusion. The answer is B. 31 is a great question because it looks more complicated than it actually is. And if you look at questions like this, like, oh, I don't know what's going on here, it's so confusing. This is Unit 1, Production Possibilities Curve. You know how to do this. First of all, just don't worry about Iotaville. That one's out. It's only asking about Omega Land. And it says they're currently producing 6 units of coal and 12 units of steel. So you can see right there, that's where we are. And it says, what's the opportunity cost if they produce 6 more units? In other words, going from 12 to 18 of steel. Well, what do you give up? Well, you had 6 coal, and now you can only produce 4 coal. That's 2 coal you gave up. That's your opportunity cost. The right answer is D. Again, it's not that confusing. If you were to actually draw out Omega Land's production possibilities curve and draw that thing out, then it'd be a lot easier. But okay, if we went from 6 coal and 12 steel to 4 coal and 18 steel, then we lost 2 coal. It's that simple. Now, 32 is another one of those questions you got to watch out for between a shift in demand or a shift in supply and a change in quantity demanded or quantity supplied. Which of the following best describes a law of supply? Law of supply says and explains the supply curve. When the price goes up, people produce more, right? There's more incentive to, and they're going to produce more. But it's not going to change the supply. So if you thought, oh, the supply is going to increase. When the price goes up, the supply increases. You thought the answer was C. No, the answer is D. When there's an increase in the price, its quantity supplied is going to go up. Again, that's the shape of a supply curve. When the price goes up, producers are going to produce more along that supply curve, not actually shifting that supply curve. The answer was D. Now in question 33, we're talking about supply over again, except we're talking about shifting the supply curve, right? So all the following will shift the supply curve for grapes except for. So one of these things doesn't shift the supply. The answer is E, an increase in household incomes. Incomes is not a shifter of supply, it's a shifter of demand. So tastes and preferences, income, substitutes and complements, those are all demand shifters, have nothing to do with supply. The supply ones, a strike by the vineyard, government regulations, elimination of per unit subsidies, and affecting of the wage of grape producers, affecting the inputs in the production of grapes. Those things all affect supply. A through D all affect and shift the supply. E doesn't, it's a shifter of demand. 34, we're back to supply demand again, except this time it's being very specific what we're looking for. It says we have a upward sloping, and in fact, no, we have a perfectly inelastic demand. So the demand is, so at every single price, people buy the exact same quantity. It looks, I mean, that's, people want to buy this, they have to buy it, there's the demand. We also have a supply curve. The supply curve looks like this. Supply curves are upward sloping. This is kind of awkward, I'll do this. Upward sloping supply curve looks like this, and it says, what's going to happen when there's a decrease in supply? Now, a decrease in supply means the supply curve is going to shift to the left. So the supply shifts this direction because the decrease is always to the left. Price goes up, quantity stays the same. The right answer is price goes up, quantity remains the same. The answer is D. 34 is D. Okay, question 35 talks about consumer surplus. Consumer surplus, definition-wise, is the difference between what you're willing to pay for something and you did pay for it. So the best example of this would be B, an individual who pays less for a pizza than he or she thinks it's worth, right? That's the idea of consumer surplus. You might have confused that with the idea of a regular surplus, just, you know, the idea that the quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demanded. So if you put E, you're getting confused on what a surplus is. Consumer surplus is a very specific idea and concept, and it's the reason why people exchange things. I want to buy that because I value it more than what it costs me to buy it, and that gives me consumer surplus. The seller is willing to sell that for less than what they actually do sell it for, so they make some producer surplus. Anyways, the right answer here, no doubt about it, was B. Individual who pays less for a pizza than he or she thinks it's worth. Question 36, we talked about this before, talked about maximizing total revenue. It's maximized where MR hits zero. So when MR hits zero, total revenue is at a maximum. The answer is D, which makes sense. 36 is D. Here's why. When the marginal, first of all, the marginal revenue is downward sloping. You know, it's from like a monopoly. If the marginal revenue is positive, that means your additional revenue is going up. So if my marginal revenue is 10, my total revenue goes up by 10. If my marginal revenue is 5, my total revenue goes up by 5. If my marginal revenue is 1, my total revenue goes up by 1. When my marginal revenue is 0, right? If it hits the x-axis, this is the worst graph ever. It hits the x-axis and it's 0, my total revenue doesn't go up and it doesn't go down. It maximizes. When my marginal revenue is negative, if it's negative 1, my total revenue will go down by 1. So whenever the marginal revenue is 0, the total revenue is maximized. The right answer here is D. Okay, in question 37, again, we're talking about costs and cost curves. The most important thing you gotta watch out for, remember from before, is watch out between total and average. They're two different concepts. In this question, they gave you the total cost, and you have to figure out what's the average variable cost. Well, when we produce 3 units, the total cost is 60, right? It costs $60 to produce 3 units. And when you produce nothing, the total cost is 15. So when you produce nothing, there's no variable cost. That means it must be fixed. If you subtract 60 minus that 15 of fixed cost, that gives you $45 variable cost, total variable cost. Don't forget, you have to calculate the average variable cost. So you have to divide that 45 divided by 3. So the right answer is 15. 37 is B. Again, if you're confused, don't be. The question is asking what is the average variable cost. The variable cost, yes, is 45, but you got to divide that by the quantity to get the average, which is 15. So there's actually another way of calculating the average variable cost. You could have taken the total cost divided by 3, and that would give you $20 of average total cost. And then you know the fixed cost is 15, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. That's the average fixed cost. So we calculate the average total cost is 20. The average fixed cost would be 5. The average total cost minus the average fixed cost would end up with 15. So 20 minus 5 would be 15. That's another way of getting it. I didn't do it that way, but you could. In 38, supply and demand question, it says, if the price and the quantity decrease, what must have happened? The answer, decrease in demand. If you just draw out the graph, you got the right answer. So the demand goes down, the price goes down, quantity goes down, draw the graphs. In fact, if you did these test questions and you didn't draw any graphs the entire time, you're probably doing it wrong. Graphs help you get the right answer. So draw it out. Answer on this one is A. Now in question 39, we're talking about the shutdown rule. A firm's average total cost is above the price and a loss minimizing output. The firm should continue to produce in the short run as long as the price is above the average variable cost. So just remember this, the shutdown rule is when the price falls below the average variable cost, if the price is below the average total cost, right? Below the average total cost, but above the average variable cost, then they're going to continue to produce in the short run. They'll just be making a loss in the short run. The point is, right here, the answer is B. The price needs to be above the average variable cost if they're not going to, it's going to shut down because they'd be making more of a loss. If the price is below the average variable cost, they're making more of a loss than if they just shut down and tell their workers to go home. Question 40 might mess you up if you didn't really study about monopolies. And it's understandable that you could do this. First of all, you might be thinking, well, monopolies are bad, so you tax them. No. If you tax something, the price will go up and the quantity will go down. That'll cause deadweight loss to be worse. You actually have to give a subsidy. And the subsidy you have to give is a per unit subsidy. A per unit subsidy shifts the marginal cost to the right and it causes them to produce more. So the right answer here is D. Granting a per unit subsidy to Denver Electric would decrease the deadweight loss. Now if you put E, setting a price floor, no, price ceilings would work. A price floor doesn't work. A price ceiling could effectively do it as well. So E is out. The only one that makes any sense is that per unit subsidy in D. Okay, it's time for a game theory question. This is it. Keep in mind that the numbers on the left are always for the firm on the left, Frozen & Company. Numbers on the right are for the firm on the top. So you gotta be able to read the chart first. The first thing you have to do is figure out dominant strategy. Dominant strategy is the thing that they should do regardless of what their opponent does. Let's start with Frozen. If CubeMart decides to do ads, what should Frozen do? Well, they should do ads because 300 is more than 200. And if CubeMart decides to do no ads, then Frozen & Company should do 500. So sometimes Frozen & Company should do ads and sometimes they should not do ads. In other words, they don't have a dominant strategy. Frozen & Company does not have a dominant strategy. So that's not going to help you with this question. Let's do the same thing over for CubeMart. If Frozen & Company, now when you do a dominant strategy, let the other firm make a choice and decide what would the other firm do. So if Frozen & Company does ads, which one's better for CubeMart? Well, Cube would rather do ads because 400 is better than 300. And if Frozen does no ads, CubeMart, it's better for them again to do ads, right? Because 300 is better than 250. In other words, CubeMart will always do ads. They'll always do it because that'll give them the most profit regardless of what their other opponent does. So there's no reason for CubeMart ever to not do ads. So what does that mean? Well, if Frozen knows that CubeMart's going to do ads, they can choose between getting 300 and 200, and they're going to do ads. So the right answer to this question is 300 plus 400. The upper left-hand corner on the chart is where they'll be, their Nash equilibrium. And so the right answer is D, 700 is their combined daily profit. And really quickly for question 41, you gotta skip that question, but let's be honest. If you have this resource and you stole it from someone or you downloaded it legally, that's kind of lame to do. And again, you're basically, you're totally stealing money away from me, but also you're preventing me from producing cool stuff in the future. So please do me a favor, please pay for this product. If someone gave it to you or if someone posts online, email me, let me know, call them a jerk to their face. If your teacher gave this test to you but they didn't actually pay for it, don't call them a jerk, you'll get kicked out of school. But point out to them, hey, you probably should do the right thing given the fact you're an economics teacher. For those people who bought this, thank you so much. I mean that. Thank you so much for supporting ACDC Econ. Okay, in question 42, we're talking about price discrimination and what's gonna happen if a monopoly can perfectly price discriminate. Well, the first thing that's gonna happen is they're gonna produce more output. The reason why is they're gonna produce where MR equals MC. Remember, with a regular non-price discriminating monopoly, it looks like this, demand, marginal revenue. But the marginal revenue will equal the demand and then when they're price discriminating. So the first thing to do is they're gonna produce more output. But that's not gonna help you answer this question. What's gonna happen to the consumer surplus? Well, if somebody's willing to pay $100, now they're gonna have to pay $100. And if someone's willing to pay 90, they're gonna pay 90 because the firm is price discriminating. So consumer surplus is gonna disappear. And since the monopoly is producing more output, they're producing the quantity where the marginal cost hits demand, there actually gonna be no deadweight loss. So the right answer is E, 42. E. Question 43, yes, we have a graph. We've got demand, we've got the marginal factor cost, same as the marginal resource cost. This is a perfect competitive firm hiring workers in the labor market, right? So question says, what if there's new technology, but only for this firm? Well, first you have to understand that's not going to affect the wage. The marginal factor cost, the wage is going to stay the same because other firms don't have this new technology. So the wage stays the same because this firm's a wage taker and they're the only ones that are affected by this. So wage stays the same, but the quantity this firm's going to hire is going to increase because these workers now are more valuable, they generate more revenue for the firm. So wage remains the same, quantity it would increase. 43 is C. For question 44, we're talking about a positive externality. We're talking about a community park, and it says, which of the following must be true? The right answer is is A. The marginal social cost is less than the marginal social benefit. And you know a firm is producing the right quantity where the marginal social cost equals the marginal social benefit. But if the benefits are greater, if there's more benefits to society than the cost, that means there's a positive externality. These benefits are not being factored in by the market, and so there's this positive spillover benefits to other people. The right answer is A. Now, the right answer is not B, it's the opposite, right? The market equilibrium output is greater than socially efficient. No, and C, the market is actually underproducing parks because they're not factoring in this additional benefit. So C is all messed up. D, the market equilibrium output is equal to the socially efficient. No. And then E, the marginal social benefit of the park is greater than the marginal social benefit of a school. It has nothing to do with schools. Like, we don't know anything about schools in this case. So it's not E, not D, not C. The only one that makes any sense is A. Again, question 45 is kind of a definition question. What is antitrust legislation? Antitrust is getting rid of monopolies. The answer is A, prevent large firms from merging or forming monopolies. That's what antitrust is. So monopolies used to be called trusts. So antitrust is anti-monopoly laws. Okay, in question 46, again, we're talking about comparative advantage. We did this back in question 2. We talked about an input question. Now in 46, we're talking about an output question. I set it up on the board to make it a little more visual so you can see. There's Lydia, she can produce 8 towers or 4 puzzles. Anna can produce 4 towers or 4 puzzles. This doesn't really help us. Not if you don't understand how to calculate comparative advantage or per unit opportunity cost. But the first thing you have to understand is absolute advantage. Lydia can produce more towers. She has an absolute advantage in the production of towers, and neither really have an absolute advantage in the production of puzzles. The answer here is B. Anna has a comparative advantage in assembling jigsaws. The reason why you know that is because you can, again, do the quick and dirty. The quick and dirty, once you have these numbers set up this exact way, you multiply, because there's only 2 possible situations here. Either Lydia's doing the towers and Anna's doing the puzzles, so it's either this, or it's Anna's doing the towers and Lydia does the puzzles. There, because you can't have a comparative advantage in both. That's why E doesn't make any sense. So what you do is you multiply these scenarios out. So 8 times 4. So if I go this direction, 8 times 4 is 32. 4 times 4 is 16. 32 is a higher number. That means this is a better option for you to choose. It's better to have Lydia making the towers and Anna doing the puzzles, because that'll give you more total output, right? That'll give you more output than going the opposite direction. The answer here is B. Anna has a competitive advantage in assembling jigsaw puzzles. Anna, I circled, does puzzles. Lydia does the towers. That's the concept using what's called the quick and dirty. If you want the other way of doing this, calculating per unit opportunity cost, go back and watch the unit summary videos where I give you some more details on that. In question 47, we're talking about supply and demand, in this case demand shifters. What'll cause the demand for grape jelly to shift to the left? So what causes demand to fall? Well, there's a decrease in the price of substitute, increase the price of complement, increase in the price of incomes in case if it's inferior good, which is the right answer actually. The right answer is C, an increase in incomes of consumers, assuming that grape jelly is an inferior good. If income goes up, then people are going to buy less grape jelly because it's an inferior good. Remember, inferior good means income goes up, people buy less of it, or income goes down, people buy more of it. So the right answer is C. All the other ones don't really fit. D doesn't work because it talks about wages, that's supply, that's not it. And E is also talking about supply. So you can throw out D and E, that's supply shifters. A and B are just messed up. They've messed up the relationship between the substitutes and complements. Answer is C. Now question 48 allows us to practice supply and demand shifting over again with substitutes and complements. So if you messed up on 47 and you put either A or B, you're probably making that same mistake somewhere in 48. Let's figure it out. It says marshmallows and graham crackers are complements. If the price of graham crackers decreases, that's going to cause the demand to go up for marshmallows, right? If the price goes down for graham crackers, it's cheaper to buy them. I'm going to go buy more marshmallows because I buy those things together. So the price and quantity for marshmallows will increase. 48 is C. Okay, now this one, we got supply and demand over again, except this time we have a graph, and it says what happens if there's a price floor at $6. Remember, floors go above equilibrium, ceilings go below. So a floor above equilibrium at $6 will have an effect. It is binding. The result here, though, is going to be a shortage. Nope, I lied. It's going to be a surplus. The quantity supplied is going to be 300. The quantity demanded is going to be 150. So producers are going to want to produce more than people want to buy because the price is so darn high, and the government won't let the price fall because it's the floor. So there's going to be a surplus, and the consumer surplus is going to get smaller. Remember, there's a difference between surplus and consumer surplus. Those are completely different concepts. The consumer surplus, because it's the difference between what people are willing to pay and what they did pay, is going to get smaller because the price goes up. Right? So if you're willing to pay $100 for jeans and you want to pay $30 for those jeans, you have $70 consumer surplus. But if the price of those jeans went up to $60, your consumer surplus would get smaller. Anytime the price goes up, consumer surplus gets smaller. That's why the right answer is a surplus, decrease in consumer surplus. D is the right answer to question 49. In question 50, we're doing elasticity of demand over again, except it's not cross-price elasticity, it's income elasticity. In this case, they say it has a positive 1.5 income elasticity, which means it's a normal good. If incomes go down, then the quantity is going to go down for that good. If incomes go up, then the quantity is going to go up for that good. In this case, they said the incomes fell 10%, and so the quantity is also going to fall, but it's going to fall by more than 10%. So the answer here is C. The quantity for the restaurants is going to decrease by more than 10% because the income elasticity coefficient is positive 1.5. 51, we're talking about the relationship between producing stuff and costs. And it says if the firm's marginal product of labor is falling and each worker is producing less additional stuff, well, what happens? Well, the marginal cost would be increasing, right? And that makes sense. If you think about it, I hire another worker, they produce a less additional output. So that output, the cost of that output is going to be higher. The marginal cost can be higher. I want you also to remember there is a mirror image between the marginal product curve and the marginal cost curve. So if the marginal product curve is going down, the marginal cost curve is going up. The right answer to 51 is A. Question 52, it's talking about returns to scale. In this case, it says a firm produces 40 units when it hires 20 workers. When it hires another 20 workers, so now it's hiring the same amount over again, it's getting more than 40 from those workers. In other words, they hire the first workers, they got 40 output. They hire another set of workers and they got more than that. That's the idea of increasing returns to scale. As they're producing or hiring more workers, they're producing more stuff and getting more output from those workers. Okay, in question 53, you gotta remember there's two types of profit. There's accounting profit and economic profit. In this case, they said a manufacturer earned total revenue that covered all of the explicit costs, but they still didn't make economic profit. How is that possible? Well, the reason why that's possible is because D, implicit costs, are greater than accounting profits. The opportunity cost is greater than the distance between the revenue and those explicit costs. So this firm is making accounting profit, right? If this firm's covering its revenue, then it's making accounting profit, but they're not making economic profit because their implicit costs are larger than those accounting profits. Again, right answer 53 is D. Now in question 54, we've seen this concept before. We're going to see it again. Producing where the price equals the marginal cost is allocatively efficient. D, the firm is producing the allocatively efficient output when the price equals the marginal cost. When the price people want to pay equals the additional cost of producing those units, society is getting what they want. The right answer is D. Now I told you you'd see it again. You're going to see it again in question 55. Compared to perfect competition firms, monopolists achieve all the following except the right answer is B. They do not achieve allocatively efficiency. You're going to see this concept of demand equal the marginal cost, allocative efficiency over and over and over again. Monopolies just don't have it. They're not allocative efficiency or allocatively efficient. They cause deadweight loss. So A, they cause deadweight loss. They cause higher prices, lower levels of output, and long-run economic profit. Those are things that monopolies have, but they're not efficient. In 56, we're talking about the characteristics of the market structures, mutual independence, price leadership, that's oligopolies. The answer is C. The other ones don't have mutual independence. They're not really worried about the prices of the other guy. And price leadership doesn't happen with monopolies because there's no other people to lead. And in perfect competition, they're all price takers. So the right answer is C, oligopolies. In question 57, again, we're using the profit maximizing rule. In the product market, you produce where MR equals MC. In the resource market, you hire where MRP equals the MRC. So in 57, the right answer here is B. 57 is B. Because perfect labor will hire workers up to the point where the wage, which is the MRC, equals the MRP. So the right answer is B. Now in 58, again, we're talking about cost curves. If the marginal cost is greater than the average total cost, then it's going to be pulling up that average total cost. The answer is A. Remember, you got to know the relationship. Marginal cost goes down and up. ATC goes down, hits the minimum, and goes back up. If the marginal is above the average, it pulls the average up. The right answer is A. In question 59, we're talking about Unit 6, we're talking about negative externalities. Which of the following is correct? Well, C, the government could eliminate deadweight loss by imposing a per unit tax. B doesn't work because remember, a lump sum tax doesn't affect the quantity. It doesn't mean they're going to produce less or more, but the idea is the government could eliminate a deadweight loss by imposing a per unit tax. C is the right answer. D, if the government does not intervene, marginal social benefit is greater than marginal private benefit. No, that's positive externalities. No. E, if the government does not intervene, marginal private cost is greater than the marginal social cost. No, the marginal social cost is greater than marginal private cost. So the only one that makes sense here is C. Okay, time for the last question, number 60, the Lorenz curve. Your teacher might have showed this to you before. It's like the banana graph. The right answer here is D. It shows how equally or unequally income is distributed in the population. It talks about income equality. That's a great graph to show that relationship and that, how income is distributed. Okay, that's it for the second practice exam in the Ultimate Review Packet. Of course, thank you so much for getting the packet. Please subscribe, tell other people about these videos and about the packet, and good luck to you. I hope you did well on this test. If you have questions or have issues, go back to the summaries and watch those and try some more practice questions. Again, thank you so much for watching my videos. Until next time.